In Machakos, rather, from the 11th to the 13th of October. Now let's move from that. We get to some football action. And the countdown to the FKF elections is on. Remember, we had the FKF electoral board set up, and already they have given the delegates that will be voting for the national executive committee. And aside from that, former footballer for Gor Mahia and Harambee Stars, Owino, is also an aspirant who says he wants to change Kenyan football. I had a chance to speak to him, and he says in Kenya, there is a lot that we need to do so that we can get back on track and develop football. Let's listen in. Kempes, thank you for finding time to come here to Standard Group to talk to us about, your ambition to change Kenyan football and what you intend to do so that, football, Kenyan football can go to the levels that everybody wants it to be. But first of all, you want to change Kenyan football, but it seems that the people who are in football at the moment don't want you to go that direction.
Yeah, it's we know that all along the current federation and the previous federation has focused on self-preservation. So they just want to be there as long as they can. So we do have these challenges that we do have to overcome, and we're doing everything on our part to make sure that we can overcome them. But I believe that in the end we will. I think the overwhelming feeling wherever you go in the country is that we need to have a change.
I mean, you've played for Kenya, you've played for the national team, but a number of people, or rather people that are in this space of football in the country, see you as an outsider. Why do you think so?
I mean, it's obvious because, I played obviously for the national team and Gor Mahia and had the opportunity to go and for further studies in the United States. And I stayed there for a long period of time. So that's where it comes from. But I honestly believe for me that is an advantage because it allows me to see things from a different perspective. And, as opposed to, also allows me, being in the United States also has allowed me to learn some new ideas that I can incorporate into the running of football here. So for me, it's not a disadvantage, it's an advantage. I can understand somebody saying that, but I think for the most part, it really is mostly my opponents who use it as something against me, and that's understandable.
There was a plan to lock you out of the elections. You say that you're going to the highest court of arbitration for sports. So far, what progress have you made?
So, for me, as far as I'm concerned, that should not be an issue because I am, even based on the electoral code that they have in place, I am eligible to vie. So that's not an issue with me. I think where people confuse things is they think I went to cast because of my eligibility. No, I believe in the idea of a free, fair and credible election. So my reason for going to cast had nothing to do with my eligibility. It had to do with trying to make sure that the issues that I anticipate us having, if we go through this process, that we could avoid those issues. Like, for example, there are court cases that are ongoing locally, and then we have the cast case that we have. I feel like we're going to always have these legal issues if we go this path. And until and unless we resolve them, it's always going to be an issue. And also, just as somebody who wants what's good for football, I want everybody that is qualified to be able to run. And so for me, it's not about me, but more about what is fair in terms of what's best for running football in this country. So I am eligible, just to be clear, I'm eligible to run based on the electoral code that they have in place. So it's not an issue with me, but it's an issue of what is the right thing to do for football.
Now, the question would be, having in mind that you've played for Kenya, you played for Gor Mahia, you've been to the United States where you furthered your career, you also furthered your education. From what you've seen out there, what are you bringing in, or what do you aim to transform here in Kenya that you've seen is not working?
Just before I answer that question, I want to go one step back. You mentioned the current federation trying to stop me from running. You know, I've heard from sources, and they're very credible sources, that they will try to do that. And as you know, this electoral board is not independent. They are biased in favor of the current federation. There are very close relationships with members of the current federation. If you look at the chairman of the electoral board, I've watched him multiple times on TV, defending the federation in a way that is completely absurd. And so we know that there's no independence in this federation. They are not credible. I don't think people trust this electoral board. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to find something to stop me from vying, but I don't think it's going to work. But beyond that...
Speaking on the credibility, last week we had the CS for Sports, Kipchumba Murkomen, in Parliament, where he was answering some questions, and he said that the ministry will try and ensure that the elections are credible, and they are committed to making sure that the whole process is credible. What do you have to say about that?
I think that to me, the issue that I have with the whole thing, in regards to Murkomen and the whole process, is that we see people saying the right things, right? But then you don't see any action that follows it. So, for example, Murkomen made the point that Nick Mwendwa should not vie because constitutionally he was not eligible to vie. And then you see Nick Mwendwa going through this process of vying. So you've got the CS saying one thing, and then you've got Nick Mwendwa doing completely the opposite. So I think what makes people wonder is that there is no bite in what the CS is saying. That whatever the CS says has no effect on what the federation does, and so that's an issue. And then coming back to your question that you asked me earlier in terms of what do I bring to the table? I think for me, everything that I have in terms of experience, in terms of expertise that I learned overseas is what's needed here. For example, good governance is an issue here. Lack of infrastructure. I have the experience of building physical facilities. I build soccer complexes unlike anything you see in this country. I'm an expert in building grass fields, artificial turf fields. I have run leagues, I've run tournaments. So I have this whole range of experience or expertise that we need in this country. And I think I can provide the leadership that is needed for us to move football forward. I don't think you can say that about anybody. In addition to that, I don't say I qualify because I'm a former player, but I also have that added experience of having played for Gor Mahia and played for the national team. So not only am I somebody who understands the player, having been a player, but I also have this palette experiences that I'm bringing to the table that Kenya football needs.
And the big question, brother, I want to ask you, what is the problem with Kenyan football at the moment?
In a nutshell, is poor leadership at the top. If you just want to summarize it, that's our problem. And then in addition to that, I think we have this process of electing the wrong people. And so poor leadership is our issue. That's in summary, that's our problem. So what happens when you have poor leadership? You end up with no good structures to be able to allow the whole country to be involved in our football, right? So we need to bring in competent individuals that not only are competent but also have the interest of football at heart. And so what we have is a combination of people who are poor, incompetent, and also don't care about our football. And to me, in a nutshell, that's our problem.
Yes. Aside from that, as you know, as a former pro and somebody now who views the running of football from a totally different perspective, and you want to make it better, how does it feel when you see we have clubs that don't honor fixtures, referees have not been paid? I mean, there is a push and pull, when it comes to a number of issues. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel really sad, and that's one of the reasons why, the big reasons why I wanted to come in and vie for the presidency. I mean, if we start talking about the problems of football, there are so many. There are so many problems that we have. And I'm one person that believes that, to solve something, the focus should never be on what, I'm saying, okay, there should be some focus on that. But I think what I've decided to do is, instead of focusing on our problems, which everybody knows, if I sit here and start naming our problems, you've named some of them, but there are so many of them. And so my focus is on how do we solve our problems? What is my vision? And how do I solve the problems? That's been my focus wherever I've gone, and not so much on what the problems are, because I think defining the problems is the easy part. I think the difficult part about everything in life is, how do you build something? It's easy to destroy, it's a lot harder to build. So that's always my focus.
And now that, of course, you said there are a lot of problems when you talk about Kenyan football, I want to highlight one that, has been the talk of town for, let's say, a number of months back. Sporting facilities, as much as it also falls on the government side, but accessibility to football facilities for the national team, clubs, has been a challenge. Like, we have very few clubs who have their own grounds. I mean, probably, what do you say of that challenge? And if you come into this now that you come from a background where you've dealt with this outside Kenya, what do you probably intend to do?
Okay, I've traveled around the country, and I've looked at multiple facilities. Some of them under construction, some of them already built. So there's that level of facilities. There's the stadium level facilities that are built by either counties or government. Those facilities' problem is that, number one, they're poorly built. So there's a lot of, again, it comes back to corruption. Whether the government is building it or the county is building, what you see when it's all said and done is that they're done very poorly. And so that's an issue that we have to deal with. And I think the federation can play a role in helping the counties and the government, especially when you have the expertise, to ensure that those facilities are, number one, built the right way. Then there's the other issue that we have to deal with. Now, I'm talking about the big stadiums. We assume that building a stadium is the end of it, when in reality, building the first stadium is the first part of the process. Maintaining the stadium is a very important part of the process. So we need to ensure that the stadium is maintained properly. Murkomen said something the other day that I truly believe in, that the government should never be in the business of managing the stadium. So they should get involved into financing it, but they should allow other people to take it from there. But I think we can partner with private sector to manage our stadium better. For example, if you look at most of our stadiums now, right, they're in bad shape, okay? Why don't we, instead of letting the situation go like that, because governments, we try to get the government to manage them, why don't you make a partnership with a private investor, have them pay you some amount of money, let them manage it, make it mandatory that they make it available for national teams and leagues, but then beyond that, give them the ability to manage it and run it. And then they make money out of it, but the stadiums are in the process are well managed. So I think the partnership between the government, whether it's county or national government, and private sectors is something that I welcome and needs to be looked into. But then there's the next level of fields, which is not necessarily the stadiums. And I think this is something that people gloss over. I know we talk about stadiums and people get excited, but if you go to the grassroots, if most of the country just needs soccer fields, and this is an area that I can really help. You talk to teams in the county level, the sub-county level, they don't have adequate stadiums. You look at the fields not stadiums, adequate fields. If you look at the fields that they have, it's just a flat surface with goals. we can build lots of those things. And I believe that if we can work with counties and government and private sectors and FIFA sometimes allocates money for physical infrastructure. I have the expertise in building fields. I believe that we need, if you look at, I talked about managing fields, right? When we build a field right now in Kenya, we don't have the money or the resources to be able to maintain the grass and make it look good. So I'm of the opinion that most of the fields, as many as we can, needs to be artificial turf, so that the cost of maintenance is zero. People can play on them whether it's rains or not. And so we do have this, with better planning, I think we can provide a lot of good physical facility. And also we can work with the government and the counties to come up with a way of managing our stadiums better, so that we don't have what we have. And also every stadium that I've visited, without exception, the playing surface has been horrible. And that includes all the better stadiums. And so that's something we need to take care of.
That is a former Gor Mahia and Harambee Stars players.